Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 more cards that are rotating in the Pokemon TCG that are really weird. And the first card we have up here is Wallace, and these cards aren't really in any particular order. In fact, I had 20 and I kind of just split them up between two videos. So check out the other one after this one. But what categorizes the card as weird is it varies, but just weird effects and some of these are quite meaningless as well. For example, Wallace is quite bad, but there's a lot of cards that you probably aren't very familiar with that are strange in some way. And the first one we have, as I said, is Wallace. This is a supporter. This is draw three cards. Your opponent may draw a card, and if they do, you draw one more card. This is bad. This is really the reason why it's here. If you're not familiar, I imagine most of you are, but there are supporters. What? Okay. Like Nimona, which say you draw three cards. These supporters are bad. They're not literally unplayable. Like, for example, this person played Nimona. Apparently, they played a copy in this deck, but it's, not common and not super strong. However, Wallace is worse than this. Um, Almost objectively. I would say it's objectively worse. Your opponent can always just say no. And then it's the same thing as Nimona, but your opponent has a choice to have some, to do something as well. So in that situation, they are able to get an extra card, which will help them. Realistically, one extra card for them is way better than the one extra card for you, I think, because drawing a fourth card versus drawing three cards, that's only a little bit of an increase, versus one card versus none. That's a big deal. Theoretically, I think but ultimately, it's something that gives your opponent a choice to make the card better for them. They'd obviously choose to do it in that way. Theoretically, it's not necessarily better because they could make the wrong decision and they don't know what's in your hands, so they're making a decision somewhat blindly, but realistically, it should be better for them than Nimona would be. So Wallace is quite bad. It's a card that's essentially objectively worse than some cards that are very bad. There are a few cards like this, and Wallace is the one I wanted to highlight here. The next card I have here is Regenerative Energy. Regenerative Energy is also not very good. It's been played in Lugia V-Star some. Lugia V-Star can play various different special energy cards, and this is one. That's really why it sees play. It's not super good, but the deck can just, fill itself out with different special energy cards because it plays a lot of cards that are, quite frankly, not like super strong. Um, Gift Energy, V-Guard Energy. Like V-Guard Energy is not super strong. It's okay. But you're filling your deck out with these kind of generic special energies. And also apparently it has not seen play in competitive play much um since like last rotation. So yeah. You can see it in a deck like this, which plays four mist energies, which you like really don't need four, or four gift energies. Like it's nice, but there's only so much value there. However, Regenerative Energy, what it does, it's a colorless energy, and whenever you play this from your hand, um, or when you play a Pokemon from your hand to evolve the Pokemon V this card's attached to, you heal 100 from this Pokemon. It does stack, I believe, but like, come on, right? This card is kind of weird. It's very niche, and it's healing the Pokemon uh, when it evolves, but you don't have that much HP before you evolve. Admittedly, basic Pokemon V have like a decent HP, but it's not amazing. And so when you evolve, you probably don't have damage, or if you do, you're probably knocked out, right? So it's very niche, and also being triggered off of Lugia. Well, I guess it's not on play from the energy, but it is still very niche, and not one that's particularly good. It's kind of strange. I imagine there are people who have played this one. This is probably the only card in this video that people have played. Maybe not, but it's one of the only ones. But definitely a pretty weird card. The next card we have is Professor Laventon. This is another supporter card that's also not very good. It says put up to three Pokemon that have Hisuian in their names from your discard pile into your hand. I've never played this card. I've never seen someone play this card. Yeah, Hisuian Pokemon, there's some that are good. Um, like Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, Hisuian Decidueye V-Star end up winning a World Championship, and Hisuian Basculin and Hisuian Basculegion. These are okay cards. but there's no Hisuian deck. And there's not really a reason to make that either. There's Iskin, another supporter that interacts with Hisuian Pokemon that's also not very good. Though it's a little bit better, but Professor Laventon is a very niche. Oh, Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is also good, but you're not really looking to recover a bunch of these Pokemon, and use your supporter to do so. It's definitely better to play like really any other supporter. The supporter is quite bad, and it's like it's kind of hilariously bad, but it is a card that definitely, I don't know if I'd say stood out to me, but it's a card that's quite bad. In some ways, like blends into the shadows of very not spectacular cards. Next card here we have actually is a Hisuian Pokemon, which is Hisuian Voltorb, which has a free attack. And it says you can only use this attack if you go second and on your first turn. So again, already you will not be able to use this a bunch of the time, but you choose two of your bench Pokemon for each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic energy and attach it to that Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. This is kind of like TM Turbo Energize. It's kind of like Manaphy from Pocket. It's like I don't know, like Volcanion. And those cards is like, and those cards are okay, but they're not that good. But regardless, this is very niche in its use case. And then second attack for one grass is Ram, which is 10. This is from the set Astral Radiance, and the card it evolves from, or evolves into, has two free attacks, which is kind of cool. But then this is weird, something that we almost never see. A Pokemon that has, or at least that I don't remember really seeing, a Pokemon that its previous evolution's attack is more expensive than any of its evolution's attack. So that's really weird to me. Its attack's very niche and not super strong. There are some free attacks which are nice, like say Cleffa or Badoo. I was like, what's that Pokemon? I guess I erased it from my mind temporarily, but this is not those, right? It's not super strong. It's kind of funny. It's kind of cool. Oh, apparently someone played it and it was okay, I guess. Definitely pretty niche, kind of interesting. Not like the worst card I've ever seen, but it's really weird, especially because the evolution thing that really stood out to me, and it's something that you almost never see. The next card here we have is Amoonguss. Amoonguss is a card that I feel like is kind of infamous for being really useless. It has an attack and stats and stuff, but what really matters is its ability. During your turn, if this Pokemon is discarded from your hand by an effect of an attack or ability from your opponent's Pokemon, or by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter cards, you discard your opponent's hand. um, so discarding their hand's like absurdly good, right? That will probably, I don't know if it'll necessarily win you the game. Depends on their board state, but it's quite good. Um, but this is almost impossible to trigger. You can now trigger this with notably Zero Six Machinations, which could happen. I've never seen anyone play this. I don't think. I mean, I've certainly never seen its ability be used. But it's a really weird card. Definitely really bad. Like when it came out, I don't think it was really triggerable. I mean, theoretically it was, but no cards in the metagame would trigger this. So yeah, this card's really bad, or really funny and specific, but definitely a card that. And tell me down below if you know this card, because I feel like it's a bit infamous, but maybe it's not. Maybe people just don't know about it because it's bad. Next card I have here is Empoleon. Empoleon's a Pokemon here with its ability Emergency Surfacing. This is actually a really cool card, unlike a lot of these which are a little niche and bad. This one is a card I've played in a deck called Beefeon, yeah. Beedrill, Leafeon, V-Star, which played Mustard. The deck's on standard, so you don't really need to worry about it too much. It was kind of cool, and I've covered it a few times on the channel quite a while ago. But its ability says once during your turn, which doesn't really matter, once during your turn thing. But if this Pokemon is in your discard pile and you have no cards in hand, you may put this onto your bench and draw 3. Its attack is just 60, snipe for 1 water. It's kind of bad. It's usable in a few situations. It also does have 2 retreat, which isn't ideal. But it is a card that lets you draw with its ability when it's not in play, which is really unique. This is a card that I think is really fun to play with, and one I do want to play with a little bit before it rotates. I don't really know how though, but it is cool. And a card I'd recommend you try out in standard or an expanded or something if you have not done so. It's a really interesting ability, and as I said, one that I've covered on my channel that I really enjoy. Speaking of my channel, I really love it if you like the video, and subscribe to my channel as well if you are enjoying the video. It really helps out the channel, also sharing things like that. But regardless, back to the content here. Yeah, Empoleon, really fun. Definitely would recommend. Not because it's really good, it's mediocre. And in some ways, it's similar to Gengar as well, getting back from the discard onto your bench. And also will be rotating from Mammoth Swan, which is a bit unfortunate, but if it was not, this card would end up seeing some play. Unfortunately, though, it will be lost to history. The next card here we have is Stunfisk. Stunfisk has its attack for 3 energy, one of which is a lightning called Mystery Bolt, which says you can only use this attack if you have no supporter cards in your discard, and it does 100 snipe to one of your opponent's Pokemon. 100 snipe for 3 is, that's, if that's all it said, it would be a solid playable card, I think, within Miraidon, though it's not super strong either. However, it's not. That's not all it says. It says you can only use this if you have no supporters in the discard. This is really rough. Silver Tempest had 3 cards in this package. You had the Stunfisk, and then you had 2 fighting Pokemon. You had Stonejourner, which did a bunch of damage if you don't have supporters in your discard, though not an absurd amount, so it's not super strong. But then you had Claydol. Claydol is, I guess, the heart of this. What? Someone played Claydol Whiskash? Anyways, I'm getting distracted. Claydol says you can use this ability if you have no supporters in your discard, so same condition. Once during your turn, you may attach a fighting energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So it's an energy acceleration ability, which is pretty okay. It's okay. It's not that good, but it's kind of fun and accelerates fighting energy. And this is super weird because Stunfisk doesn't really work with them because it's not all fighting energy. And Stunfisk is a Pokemon they can be fighting. Why didn't they just make it fighting? This is so bizarre. And this lightning Stunfisk, it uses fighting energy. Why didn't they just make this a fighting Stunfisk so it would actually be semi-usable? Not super good. I mean, I guess you could use Claydol and then lightning energy, but that sounds super awkward. On top of the fact of not being able to play supporters, which is so bad. I mean, I guess you could play the supporter Grant, which gets itself back from the discard pile, and you could also just play a bunch of Palpad. Uncommon Fossil, who I do the Reasonably Effective podcast with, and I interact with a lot and stuff like that, is a big fan of Claydol, and he's definitely had issues with it because it's kind of bad. But Stunfisk has never been a card that's been a consideration for that deck because it just doesn't fit at all. This card could have been kind of cool, but it's not. The next card we have here is actually kind of like the Hisuian Voltorb, which says you can only use this if you go second on your first turn. You search your deck for a basic energy card and attach it to one of your Pokemon. Then you shuffle your deck and your turn ends. That's super bad. Actually, this is really similar, except it's worse. You can only play one of this in the game ever, and it's not that good. Accelerating one energy and ending your turn. This is so bad. You could use an attack to accelerate energy, and that would be a little better, or maybe better. I mean, it seems a little bit better. This item's just so bad. It's actually I don't know. It's very bad. Tell me down below if you knew this card existed. I want to hear that because this card is a card that I actually kind of forgot what it did. I kind of got it confused with Wait and See Hammer, which is also not that good. It's the same thing, but it's a hammer card, so it discards an energy. But that card saw some play. I mean, it was okay. This is more play than I thought it saw. I knew it saw some. It's it's a disruptive card, kind of like Enhanced Hammer, but a little bit worse. But it also didn't end your turn, which is good. Wait and See Turbo. I feel like if it didn't end your turn, it would actually be a really solid, really fun, silly card. Maybe a little too good, admittedly, but it would still be good and it would be fun and not super broken, in my opinion. But the way it is now, it's very underwhelming. I think it could be maybe a supporter and not end your turn and get 2 energies or something. That could be cool, but right now it's just a card that is not turbo. It says it's a turbo card in the name, but it's not very fast. So yeah, at earliest you can get value out of this. You can play it turn 1 going second, but then you can actually use the energy turn 2 going second after your opponent's had 2 turns already. The next card we have here is actually a 3-in-1 from Pokemon Go. I've chosen Blanche as the supporter, though there's also Candela and Spark, which are for Fire and Lightning respectively. But Blanche says you draw 2 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, you get to flip a coin. If heads, attach a Water Energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. If you're making a Pokemon Cube, which I talked about in a previous video, which I actually recommend you check out after this one, if you don't know anything about Pokemon Cube, because it is a really interesting thing. But you have a substantially lower power level of supporters and can do some silly cards. Can include some of those. However, so it's good there, I guess. I mean, it's fun there, but it's still not very good. Drawing 2 is obviously not very good, and the coin flip energy acceleration is very whatever. and then there's three of them. Pokemon Go is a weird set I talked about in the last video. But yeah, Blanc's just a pretty disappointing supporter and very like it is quite weak, right? That's just the issue. Notably, the supporter Welder and Carduna's Vigor as well. They're better. Carduna's Vigor isn't even good, but it's substantially better. But yeah, Blanc is just a card, as well as Spark and Candela that have faded into the shadows. I've seen them. I think I might have played with them. I've certainly heard of people playing with them and seen people play with them. And yeah, the person playing with them usually does not win the game, but definitely an interesting card or some interesting cards to make note of and actually do have some value. Like you could toss them into something if you wanted. Last card is also from Pokemon Go here. This is Smeargle. Wait, no, it's not Smeargle. It's Bibarel. This card has trolled so many people that I know. It's not that good. It's actually kind of bad. But it's a niche tech card that it is like somewhat playable. It says its ability as long as this Pokemon is on your bench. Cards in your deck can't be discarded by effects of your opponent's attacks, abilities, item cards, or supporter cards, which is kind of weird. It's like anti-mill. You can still mill with Pokestop and also with tools as well, but I guess yeah, this came out before tools were different than items, so that's not necessarily intended. But regardless, the weird thing about this card is the art. This art is there's a massive Smeargle on it. So many people have so I was doing a cube draft and someone's like they were you sit there and you're not really talking that much, but then someone's like, oh wait, that's not a Smeargle, that's a different Pokemon. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And then someone else, like 2 packs later, got passed down because they didn't take it because it's not that good. And someone's like, oh wow, I got baited by the Smeargle, which is actually Bibarel. So this card's just such a weird art to me, and it's really funny as well. I think it's cool. Not something that I'd want on a really good card because people get very confused by it, but definitely fun art. And tell me down below in the comments if you have been actually confused by this art as well, because I think I've forgotten some comments about that. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all the good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.